Hello and welcome all our garment makers. It's lovely that you have joined us this evening, this cool October evening. We're delighted to have you with us. We're going to have a cosy, warm session. We have got a lot of questions. We've got very good questions. I mean, we always have good questions, but we've got particularly good questions this evening and quite a range of them. So I'm going to have to pull my finger out to get through them all and try and give everybody an equal amount of time. So as was the case on Tuesday, Peter is not with us. He's gone down to London to help our son build his house back together. But David, of course, is here. So as always, I'm going to let David mention where you are watching from this evening and welcome you to our session.
So, hi everybody. Susan Jenkins, you were first on tonight from your motorhome in Scarborough. If we shout, you can probably hear us. Although if it's as wet up where you are as it is here, then maybe you can't. Leslie Mack from cold Aberdeenshire. Deborah Chancellor from sunny full day in South Dakota. Hi there, Deborah. Jacqueline Peters from cold and wet Hertfordshire. There's a theme here, isn't there? It's getting to be autumnal. Who else have we got? Denise Bullock, Pam Matthews, Fiona Harpin, Susan Batty, Cinnamon Creef, Rosemary Soper from Bournemouth, Jane Fitzpatrick. Lots of people tuning in. Hopefully you can hear us all. And I'm going to hand back to Philippa, who's going to talk to us about the prize draw.
So if you joined us on Tuesday for our Quilters Question Time live session, you will probably, like me, have been amazed at how organised everybody was with their Christmas gifts. They were just, the place was just full of, advent calendars and quilts made for grandchildren and all kinds of things. So I've kind of gone one better really, and the two prizes that I have for this evening are all about Easter. Which I hope will give you plenty of time to get them done, and they're really, really good fun prizes. So the first one is Whizzle the Easter Gnome, and if I can, David can zoom in on that. It's made out of felt and fur fabric and baubles in lovely Easter pastel-y colours. So that is the first kit prize this evening, and then the second one is called Hippity Hop, and perhaps a little hard to see, but it's a lovely Easter wreath that is also made from the same types of fabrics. Lots of lovely pastel felts and things, a little bit of fur fabric, dangly carrots, baubles, you name it. So those are the two prizes for this evening. So in Peter's absence, I will pull two numbers. Whoops, they're trying to escape from me. Those rabbits are running away. I will pull two numbers out and pass those to David. And at the end of the session, we will let you know who our lucky Easter winners are. I mean, it's quite funny, isn't it? We need to get Christmas out of the way first, don't we? We shouldn't talk about it in terms of getting it out of the way. We should be working on our Christmas projects. And I actually am about to start some Christmas knitting. So, yeah, I am with you all on that. Right, question number one, please, David.
Okay. Sorry, I was just trying to get Philippa in focus properly, so hopefully, let me press a button there because this screen's going on. I can hear noises off. Okay, so first question is from Patricia Jenkins, and Patricia says, "Hi Philippa, in the past you've spoken about making garments larger. I need the opposite as I've lost 3 stones and want to alter some of the clothes I have. Do you have any suggestions on what I need to think about?" And that's from Patricia.
So, Patricia, that is a fairly wide-ranging question there. Anyway, first thing, congratulations on that weight loss. That is very impressive. I wonder that several people will want to know what your secret is, because we could probably all do to lose a pound or two, couldn't we? Especially in the run-up to Christmas. So I don't know your body type. I don't know how much, sort of where the weight's gone from. So whether it's gone evenly all over your body or whether it's concentrated in particular areas. So generally, I think that altering garments for me is not my most favourite thing to do. So I would certainly select things that you really think that you are going to wear, okay? Now, I don't know if you're a skirt person, but skirts are really pretty simple to alter. So you can whip off the waistband and you can run in the side seams, or you can gather and you can pleat, or you can put elastic in and pop the waistband back on. So skirts are fairly easy. Trousers can be more complex, and it does seem like it's quite a big weight loss. And so basically with a pair of trousers, you'd probably be unpicking, you know, the front from the back. Obviously, if you had a fly front, that could stay, but you'd need to be taking fabric from the side seams and from the under leg seam. So that is obviously a much bigger thing to do. So maybe new trousers would be an easier way to go, unless they're kind of very loose fitting trousers like palazzo pants, where you could just add an elasticated waistband. So, you know, if you had something with a fitted waistband but it was a loose flowy fabric, you could whip the waistband off, and then you could use an alternative toning fabric to make a new casing to put elastic in the top. So that would work with that kind of trouser. But then if you get into things like blouses, dresses, things like that, then maybe a little more complex. But you can do things, and I have done this in the past. So for example, I've bought things that have been too big, but they've maybe been designer things that have been absolutely fantastic price that I couldn't turn down. And I did buy a really lovely, I think it was a Diane Fostenberg blouse, and what I did with that was I unpicked the yoke at the back from the lower part of the back, and I took the back of the collar off, and I put a seam in the centre back of the yoke, and then I pleated the lower part of the back into the yoke, and I put a seam in the centre back of the collar, and then put a little tab on it to make it look a bit intentional. That worked really well, actually. I did once buy a jacket, a knitted kind of like a biker jacket style, but it was in a printed knitted fabric, and with that the sleeves were very long, so they just got rolled up, but what I did in the back, at the back waist, was I sewed a big wide piece of elastic in the back waist, and it just pulled everything in and gave it a blouson effect, and that worked really well. But once you're into the whole thing about altering armholes and sleeves, again, that is more complex. So I think just start with something that doesn't look too difficult, something you definitely know that you would wear. Just try it on, see where the excess fabric needs to come out, think creatively about how you can deal with that, because generally, you know, there is a fix, and then just build your skills from there. But yeah, exciting to be able to reduce garments rather than letting them out. So well done.
Okay, thank you for that. Next question is from Kate Richards, and Kate says, hi there Philippa, please can you explain to me how to lengthen the sleeves on the shift dress pattern, e.g. from cap sleeves to just below the elbow?
So the shift dress was the very first class in season 1, and the particular pattern that we used had a short little sleeve, and I have drawn a little image to show you roughly what the sleeve looked like. So instead of being straight across the bottom, it was slightly curved, and I know that a longer sleeve is more comfortable for some people to wear. They just like a longer sleeve, and so this sleeve wants to come just above the elbow. So the first thing that I would do is I would measure from the top of the shoulder to the point where I want the sleeve to finish. Just give yourself a little bit of ease, you know, an extra ½ centimetre, ½ inch or something like that, just because there's a curve to go around your shoulder there, isn't there, the top of your arm. Now the easiest thing to do, and I'm going to ask you just to look at my piece of paper if possible, please David, is to take a ruler and to draw a continuation of the side seam like so to the point where you want the sleeve to finish. Now what I want you to do at this point is not just assume that that is what you want. What I would like you to do is measure the bottom of the sleeve, so what's going to be the hem. Don't forget to take off the seam allowances and get a flexible tape measure and loop it to that measurement and put your arm into that tape measure loop and see if that's enough or whether you want more, because it might be too skinny, and if you want more, all you've got to do is come 5/8 of an inch down, and you're going to add on equally on, whoops, that didn't work, did it? Well, anyway, I've just drawn on the ruler. I'm going to have to clean that later. Just add on an equal amount at each side. But as I'm saying, do it from the 5/8 of an inch down, because you don't want to alter the measurement of the top of the arm there. Now then, you are going to need a hem on this. And so what I want you to do is determine how deep you want your hem to be. You would cut out this bit around here. Don't cut this bit, fold back along this line, and then when you fold back, you'll be able to see exactly where you want that hem to flare out, so that when it's turned up, it is exactly the same measurement as the area that it's going into, and it isn't tight, because we've probably all taken up trousers and done that similar trick. Okay, so it's very simple, easy to do. You will have great success with it, so good luck with that one.
Okay, the next question then is from Pam Matthews, and Pam is making the grain line Thayer jacket. We have a couple of people making grain line patterns tonight. This is the Thayer jacket, and we've got an image that goes with this. So this is the Thayer jacket, and she's making it in 8 wale corduroy. She says she's made a toile with a few alterations, and she's now thinking she doesn't want to tackle the buttonholes at the end of making the garment. Would it be possible to put an open-ended zip? The jacket comes lined too, and that's from Pam. What do we think, Philippa?
So nice jacket, Pam. So fairly substantial corduroy fabric, so lovely warm fabric for colder weather. It is possible. I am going to refer you to the rainwear class, which is towards the end of the season. The reason for that being is that if you want to put a zipper in, it needs to go edge to edge. And I have actually got one of my samples from that class. And what we've got is an open-ended zipper, but it has this flange to cover the zipper. So you can't, you know, you're going to need to do a similar thing with it. So the rainwear class is going to help you and explain that to you. I wonder why you feel you don't want to do the buttonholes. I have to say that I always get a little bit anxious about buttonholes. There was an occasion where we were doing some filming and we were doing buttonholes, and I can't remember which class it was, but the sewing machine would not work, and the buttonhole function was actually broken, the automatic buttonhole function, and I sent it to be repaired, and they sent it back and they hadn't fixed it because they couldn't find it, and it went back again, and eventually they did discover it. So it was a very subtle little thing, but it wasn't recognizing the length of the buttonhole. So I do completely understand that, but I wonder if it is to do with the thickness of your fabric and you think that your sewing machine might not cope with it. And I don't know what your sewing machine is, but this is a work style jacket, so it does kind of suit buttons really, and what I find is that often the automatic buttonhole foot isn't the best option for heavier duty garments where you want a good substantial fairly long buttonhole, and you're much better to use the manual buttonhole foot because it glides over the thickness much better, and it actually ends up being an easier job. But I would also suggest to you that you could look at poppers and see whether you can find some nice big substantial poppers that might look really great on it, because as I say, it's kind of that workwear look to it, and it is also worth investigating, and it depends where you live, but there are companies that you can have a tailored buttonhole done, and you can research that online, and so you could take your garment or send your garment to some place which will actually do buttonholes for you, and it'll give you that jacket style buttonhole, which if you're using any contrasting thread for top stitching, anything like that, you know, might look really nice done in the same type of thread. So do think about your options on that, but you will find lots of help on that, as I say, in the rainwear class.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Susan Hotham, and Susan says, please could Philippa tell me how she deals with the back of bound buttonholes? So another buttonhole question. When there's a facing, I either just do an ordinary buttonhole in the facing, or I basically do another bound buttonhole but without the lips. I'm just wondering if there's another way. I'm attaching a picture on the back and front, and we've got that here. What about if there is defacing? What's the neatest way to finish the back of a bound buttonhole? So that's from Susan.
So Susan, sorry, I'm falling over my words, and I'm only 4 questions in. Get a grip, Philippa. Okay, Susan, Hotham is a village close to us, and there is Lord Hotham. You're not married to Lord Hotham, are you? Anyway, he's got a very nice estate there. So you are close to home. Right, now then, it's interesting, isn't it, that in all of the garments that we do a kind of bit of a bound buttonhole in the Chanel jacket class, but we don't do a bound buttonhole in any of the garment making classes. However, I have good news for you, and this is a job that I'm going to ask David to do. When we did the reverse applique class in season 2 of Quilters Question Time, we actually filmed a section on making a bound buttonhole, and it's about 15 minutes long, broken down into 4 sections, because the reverse applique really kind of took me into that whole area of that type of work. So I'm going to ask David if he can get that little section and put it in everybody's library. Is that all right, David? Because I rewatched it this evening, and it's really useful little section. So what I would do, though, to answer your question is and actually there's some really good tips in that just for doing the front, but do the front of the buttonhole where you add 2 flanges, top and bottom, for your buttonhole, and then when you have got that done, the facing obviously doesn't have any hole in it, does it? So you can't fasten your button because you've got this big fabric obstruction there. If you lay the piece smoothly down on a table and you get a pin and you put a pin from the right side and either end of the buttonhole sticking all the way through, you can turn that to the wrong side and you can see exactly where the buttonhole opening needs to go on the facing section. Now what I do is I very carefully cut that with some sharp scissors, and that facing piece would have had some fusible interfacing on it, even if I didn't interface the whole thing, or I used a different type of woven interfacing where the buttonholes were going to be. I would probably have torn a little bit of fusible interfacing and put it on. You cut that hole, it's a slash across from pin to pin, trying to cut it very carefully in the grain of the fabric so that it isn't going to start fraying and pulling away. And then from the center of each of the cut edges, you turn back, and you turn back, maybe it depends on the buttonhole, but let's just say a scant 1/8 of an inch in the center, and that turning back goes to nothing at either end of that cut. And then you hand stitch that in place. This is all really well illustrated in that little section in the class. So if you are a member of Quilters Question Time and you've got season 2, it is the reverse applique class. For the rest of you, at some point in the hopefully not too distant future, David is going away for a few days soon, but we'll pop that into your library for a little extra for you. So there you go, Susan, Lady Hotham, you have the answer.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is from Jane Fitzpatrick, and let me just tee up the image for Jane. Jane says, it's not a question but an update on how I got on sewing my V neckline, and I think this was a question from last month after Philippa's advice last month, yes. I'm really pleased with the results and have attached some photos. The only thing I will do differently in future is to start making a new summer dress in January, so it might be ready for the hot weather. And here's Jane's image, and you can see what a lovely job she's done on the V-neck, and you can see the finished article there. She says, this one will go in the wardrobe now until next summer. Thank you for your invaluable advice and encouragement, Philippa, and that's from Jane.
So Jane, I'm absolutely delighted to see that. I mean, I always say we love to get the feedback to know actually, you know, what you did it work out for you? Have you got any extra tips that you can share with us? I mean, you look amazing. You look absolutely fantastic. I was just saying to David that I knew a lady, I shouldn't really say this, should I? But I will anyway. I knew a lady who had the same name as you many years ago, and she was a very, 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 very large lady. And so every time I see your name, this is the image that I get of this person that I used to know. And so seeing you so beautifully trim, looking absolutely gorgeous, is just a delight, really. And I just really glad that you put a photo of the edge stitching in, because that is just incredibly neat and it all sits absolutely perfectly. So you know what you need, don't you? A holiday in Australia. That's going to sort it out for you.
Okay, top tip from Philippa there. So well done, Joan. The next question is from Kathy Kelly, and Kathy says, "Good morning, Philippa and David. I'm just starting on a quilted jacket and have made my toile. I'm drafting the pocket, and although I know it must be the simplest thing, mine isn't looking right to me. I've watched the video many times, but are there some dimensions you could share? I'll be quilting my fabric before I cut the pieces out, as I will be doing this on a frame. Besides allowing more at the seams, and I've added on to make them 5/8. Any other advice? And finally, I'm considering piping for the sleeve seam without the binding. What do you think?" And that's from Kathy Kelly.
So Kathy, we have a couple of questions this evening about the quilted jacket, which is very nice. So I have got my jacket out. I imagine you are using the same pattern that I use in the class, but I'm not absolutely sure on that. And I wanted to add a pocket to my particular jacket, and the jacket is a very loose fitting style. That's the whole kind of look of it. And so I didn't want a tiny little patch pocket stuck on that you couldn't get your hand in. I wanted a really big generous pocket that carried on the theme. And so it's stitched into the side seam, but then it's applied on the top towards the center front, and it has a flap here which shows the contrast, and also I've got contrasting binding on it. So I'm just going to measure it for you. So in terms of its finished width, it's just short of 8.5 inches. That is from the center front side into the side seam, and then not including the flap on it. It is at the side seam, it's again about 8.5 inches, and at the other end, the centre front edge, it's 9.5 inches. Now, as I say, that is not including the flap. The flap is sewn down into the side seam, so it doesn't function in any way. It is just a decorative thing. So 8.5 in this direction, 8.5 here, and 9.5 there. Okay, so that is the pocket. It doesn't have to be that size. I mean, it is a really big, generous pocket, and I do wear this jacket, and I did just find a handkerchief in the pocket that was about to show you, and I've just thrown that on the floor. It's a proper handkerchief, not a tissue. Do like a proper handkerchief. Now then, your other question about piping. So this is, if I just unroll that, this is the back of the sleeve. So obviously the cuff is here, and this is the back of the sleeve. And so the sleeve has got this decorative section of binding which goes into the actual turn back contrasting cuff there. Okay, now would I pipe that? I personally wouldn't pipe it. I'll tell you why, and it's not to say you shouldn't do it, but the first thing is, because of the size of this and the kind of drama of the print and the fabrics that I've used, I think a skinny little piping is not appropriate. It needs to have more substance to it. It needs to be visually stronger. So that is my first thing. But my other reason for not doing that is that the piping is going to run down the back of your arm. So if you're sat with your arm resting on the arm of a chair or something, you've got that ridge of cord that is going to dig into you, you know, and not be very comfortable. So I don't think that that is the best place for it. So I think you could totally omit anything, don't need even to have the seam, or if you want to put some contrast in, something bigger, wider, more substantial, visually stronger is where I would go with it. But that is just my opinion, you know, and it is just my opinion. Even though I sound like I know it all, and I like to think I know it all, I actually don't. Okay, so your choice on that.
Okay, thank you. Now the next question is from Sue Egan. Hi Sue. And Sue says, "Hi Philippa and David, thank you so much for your fabulous lessons. I really feel that my dressmaking has improved dramatically as a result of watching Philippa's techniques and practicing some of them. I'm finally ready to start my quilted jacket," so this is the next quilted jacket question, "and have some options that I'd appreciate your advice on. I've bought the tamarack jacket pattern," and that's what the tamarack from, this is another grain line pattern, and had intended to use this, but see later on. Have made some patchwork stars using Liberty fabrics, and have more of the same fabric in a lovely purple pattern for the lining and more in lime green for the binding. I've made 8 stars in each of 8 colours on both large 6-inch and small finish, and we've got an image of this which Sue has sent to us as well, which look amazing. My original plan was to join them in an offset grid pattern with both large and small in one piece. However, I now realise that this will need lots of partial seams to accomplish, so now I'm thinking maybe it would be nice to use the large stars for the body and the small stars for the sleeve. And we can see the left hand picture and the right hand picture with 2 different ways of joining them together. I'm also thinking of maybe putting something special on the centre back, e.g. a mariner's compass. I've never made one, but I would like to give it a go. My other thought is maybe use the small stars with plain fabric godets to create a long peplum, is that, frill effect to my thighs, similar to the Vogue pattern V8346, which was on the previous one. I hope you can make sense of my ramblings and look forward to hearing your thoughts, and hopefully the pictures help. So I think the pictures do help. Philippa, what have you got to say about that?
Well, as always, thank you for your kind words, Sue. And you do a really good job with your questions. It's really easy to understand what you want us to help you with, which is really great, and lovely photos. So just the first thing I'm going to say to you in terms of the stars and how you should use them, all I would say to you is have a look at those 2 images that you showed us, you know, the one with the large and small stars or the one with just the large stars. Which do you prefer? And I have to say to you that I do prefer the mix where you've got small and large together, because what Sue is planning to do is piece her outer fabric. My fabric on my jacket is actually a print that looks like it's been very carefully put together, but it is actually just a print, and I don't believe that that is still in the Liberty range. I did try to get some more, unless they have redone it. So you've got quite a lot of work there assembling it together, whatever you decide to do. You are not a lady that is afraid of work, and you're not afraid of detailed work, so I'm going to just leave that one with you. I also think that that if you've got the same mix of large and small on the sleeves and on the body, it is going to be more cohesive, particularly I think if you're going to put some large element like a mariner's compass in the back of the actual jacket. So have a bit of a think about that. Okay, so, and good that you've used Liberty fabrics, because I imagine it's Liberty lawn, which will be nice and fine, because if you get too heavy cotton, it can all be very stiff and stand out, which won't be great. So, sorry, I've already said a lot there. So what should you do with it? I mean, so a godet basically is a triangle that is cut and inserted in a seam to give flare. Okay, which is what Sue is wondering about for this, instead of making it into the loose, more usual style of quilted jacket, making it into a bit more tailored. I think that you would have to have something that was quite fitted into the waist and then flaring out. So, I mean, I wouldn't suggest that you would be adding some godets into your Tamarak jacket, because you'd have this very loose shape thing, and then these godets coming out, and I think it'd be a bit shapeless and look a bit weird. And you're very slim and petite, but even that might not do you the most flattering favours. So I think that is something that does need to be considered. So what do I think I would do? What would I do? I think if it was me, I would mix up the large and small, and I would stick with the Tamarak jacket and perhaps just continue with that pattern as is, and then you're going to get masses of kind of experience and skill on that, and then it might be really lovely to do something more tailored like the Vogue pattern, more coat-like, more flared, more fitted into the waist, more flared, where you might be more discreet in the elements that you are adding to that. So in terms of, it's not pieced all over, but you might put some kind of lovely lovely detailing in the back. And when you do that, you know, if you're going to put something like a mariner's compass, put it into a lovely shaped panel. Don't make it look like a block that's just been stuck on the back of a jacket because you didn't know what else to do with it. I mean, we do see that a lot, don't we? But you know, you could insert it into a yoke, and you could shape the bottom, and you could do lots of things with it to make it really interesting. And then maybe you could just take little elements of that and have a little bit, almost like a flying geese thing flowing across a lapel, or a little bit around one sleeve, or just make it a bit kind of unexpected but more sophisticated than the more casual jacket. So I'm not clear that I've answered everything, because there's such a lot to say that have I answered everything. I hope you can make sense of my ramblings on that. We look forward to hearing what you do and where you go with it.
Thank you for that, Philippa. Okay, now those of you who were watching last month will remember that Sarah Ann Smith asked a question about her slacks, and she's sent us an image of. She's obviously done the work which Philippa suggested. And so we've got the image of Sarah Ann there, and she says, "Thank you so much for your help last month with fitting my slacks. Never before in my life has anyone observed that I have a flat bottom. I had a distinct ballet bottom as a young woman from much ballet and gymnastics, and I've never readjusted my perception of my actual body shape, which it now is. So onward. The changes made from the toile to the pinhole corduroy after last month's Q&A were about 95% successful. I think the front looks just right in my magic pants, and on the back there are some long curves on the outside of the legs depending on my stance. I made things more difficult for myself by going up a full size and then adding an extra ½ inch that mostly I didn't need to. I don't know if... Okay, so I'm delighted and love the hidden elastic in the back, which was a feature of the pattern under the back facing, which attaches to the tabs. I have a trousers pattern with narrow tabs, and I think it will be totally easy to modify them to the wider tabs with the same hidden elastic. These are, thanks to your lessons and feedback, the best fitting slacks I've ever made. I'll make these again with any suggested mods, and we'll make 2 small changes. With soft fabric like the pinwall, I will add twill tape to the pocket opening for additional stability in the stretchy front centre panel. And in the stretchy front centre panel, I'll add elastic zigzagged inside the top of the rib fabric, since I'm used to all elastic waists and will feel more secure. So she says, thank you again through the rest of the lesson, but this is the one I most wanted to get done before the Q&A's end. Best wishes to all of you who've worked on these lessons. And that's from Sarah Ann Smith.
So, David, could we just have a very quick look at the image that Sarah sent us, or the 2 images, front and back view of that? And she's also, I believe, knitted her sweater, because she's got a little bit of information there as to what she's done. Anyway, they do look fantastic. She did have, she's very exacting, which is not a bad thing at all. I mean, they do look amazing. If we could just come back to me, please, David, thank you. There was just a little bit of excess fabric sort of below the cheeks at the back. And so probably just needs a slight tweak in terms of maybe a little bit of fabric taking just from the back under the crotch, just a little bit, or maybe from the top of the inside leg seam. If you, Sarah, or anybody else want to see that, go to the jeans class, not the trouser class, and there is information in that class as to how to reduce that. So the jeans class and the trouser class as well, but particularly the jeans class, is absolutely crammed full of alterations. So if you want to tweak it that little bit further, Sarah, and if you get it done by next month, we'll show the photo next month, that's where you need to go. So thank you very much for sending that. They do look really fabulous, and I am so pleased that you are delighted with them.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Krista Martin, and Krista says, I have a question about how to finish a closure on the front of a blouse. The blouse that I truly love, this is a blouse that I truly love to wear, and I want to make another one. I've made 2 now, as you can see in the pictures, and here are the 2 pictures of her blouse. However, at the bottom of the button placket, which is called a band in the pattern, I struggle mightily to get it to look right. On the black fabric there is a lot of fraying and it just looks messy. On the multicoloured version it looks slightly better, but not how I would like it to look, flat and crisp. I provided the sewing pattern and instructions, and I've got those here. So there's the pattern and the instructions. My question is, do you have a better way to finish this area, Philippa? I'm confident that you do. Thank you for all you've taught me in the classes. I'm very grateful and will miss you. And that's from Krista.
So, Krista, I'm chuckling at your confidence. Okay, so we don't have a picture of the inside of the placket on the little print blouse, only on the grey fabric, which does look quite substantial and quite loosely woven. So I'm not surprised that you are finding that that will fray. Now, what the pattern suggests is, or what the pattern gets you to do, is to cut 2 long strips, and they are sewn on either side of what's going to create the placket, so just sewn straight down. And then I imagine, although we can't see on the instructions, that you're told to cut a little V right into the bottom corners, and that you turn down the outside to the inside and position the placket, and then sew it from the right side. And yes, there's no kind of finishing off of that bottom edge. And what I would do to finish off that bottom edge is I would put a little bit of binding over it. So I would get a fine piece of cotton lawn. It doesn't even need to be cut on the bias, it can be straight cut. And I would just hand sew a little folded strip with the ends tucked in, tuck the short ends in as well, and I would hand stitch that in place, and that would cover up and conceal all of that fraying. But if you were to make another one, and let's say you wanted a fairly substantial fabric again, think about how you could reduce the thickness of that. So I've got 2 ideas on that. So you could, if you wanted to, you could actually join a finer fabric to your outer fabric lengthways, so that the inside of that placket strip was a contrasting fabric, and you could reduce bulk that way. Or if you didn't want to do that, and if you did do that, by the way, keep the seam very narrow so it doesn't interfere with buttonholes when you come to make the buttonholes. But you could have the underneath placket in a contrasting fabric, a finer fabric. So for example, you could have a fine cotton. Let's say you were going to do red top stitching, you could do red buttons, and the underneath placket could be in red, and then you could have your grey on top. So you can see you could play with it and reduce thickness by choosing different fabrics, amalgamating different fabrics into it. But always I would put that little bit of binding over the bottom. So we wait to see the next one. Can you get it done before the next session, please? Okay.
Yeah, we've got another session next month.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure how many questions we'll get into the December one, because we're having a combined quilting and dressmaking one in December, as well. We'll probably tell you later on. So get your questions in early for next month, for November, if you've got more questions. Okay, the next question that we have this month is from Deborah Davies, and Deborah says, I do have a question, but I'll be watching on catch up. That's fine, that's understandable. I've made a dress for my new great niece, and it's the first time I've ever done smocking. Inspired by rocking smocking, and we've got an image here, I hope. So there, the book, I'm guessing that's a book, Rocking Smocking, Guide to Smocking for the Modern Sewist. I thought I'd practice techniques on children's clothes, but I think I swapped fitting challenges for a different challenge, working with such tiny pieces. There was so much fabric in the smocking and also in the gathered skirt that it felt really bulky inside the little bodice lining, which added another two layers, especially at the bodice side seams, which are just tiny. I wondered if I should have done a full dress, loose lining, but then the dress seam might have stuck out even more, and not sure how I would have finished the seams. Wondering what Philippa would do, so I know for next time. Many thanks, and that's from Deborah Davis.
Well, Deborah, your little dress is an absolute delight, isn't it? I mean, it takes us all back. I mean, it goes back even kind of to the 30s, these gorgeous, gorgeous little dresses that have never gone out of style. I mean, I think even my husband, when he was a child in the 50s, probably wore a smocked dress because he had an older sister. He remembers well getting his first bought jumpers and he was about 20. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, it's just beautiful. And I did try to have a really good look at kind of the detail on it. Maybe David can just show us the unjoined together. That's the one. Okay, so you can see the detail of all that gorgeous smocking there. I wonder what the fabric was that you used for the actual smocking section, because I think that does make a difference. You know, it's a long time since I've done any smocking, but I remember doing it initially at school when I'd be about 11 or 12, and we did it on gingham, cotton gingham, because it was really easy to follow the checks and the weave of the fabric to do it. But the fine, I mean, you don't want it too fine, but if you're using just a fairly standard cotton, that is going to add a lot of bulk there. But obviously that ends up being quite a substantial kind of, not exactly heavy, but a substantial piece to the dress. And you can't really sew that onto anything that's incredibly light, can you? Because it needs some fabric with some body in order just to support all of that smocking work that you have done. So I don't know that I think that you've made any kind of done anything that I wouldn't have done in that sense. The only thing I wonder is that when you line it, if you use something very fine like a cotton lawn, it's going to do the job of tidying up the back. It's going to make it more comfortable to wear, and it's not going to add a lot of bulk. So I do think that is an issue on that, really. And I just wondered about the little gathered sleeve section that you've got, because it appears that a little bit of the sleeve actually goes into the smocking area around the armhole. And what I suggest there is that, again, depending on your fabric, instead of having that as a single piece that's folded, I think it is two pieces there, but the actual lining piece could be very lightweight. It doesn't need to be the same weight as the outer fabric, does it? And I think you've got to really press the thing. You know, you've got to press the heck out of it, and I am saying press and not iron. You don't want to flatten it. But for example, you cut into the smocking on part of the armhole, and that's going to be really, really bulky. So I would be pressing that section, the seam of that section, on a wooden board and with steam, and using a clapper to really flatten it. And I think that the other thing to say with it is that, you know, of course you're going to make this large or larger than the child is now because you want it to last, but it's going to be more comfortable if it's not tight, isn't it? You know, if it's fairly loose on the body, it's not going to be chafing and rubbing and too uncomfortable. So I do think that is quite a big factor in choosing the size of it. I wouldn't necessarily do a separate little lining dress for it. I think it's unnecessary, really, and that's probably going to ride up and be more uncomfortable, really. So I think you did everything right, but you just need to be really careful with your lining fabric choices and really, really press it. So well done. It's beautiful. It is really beautiful. And just for anybody that's inspired, I could just see that the Rocking Smocking book is by Laura Burke, and then I couldn't quite read the given name of the other lady, but it's Kay McLaren. So if you just look for Burke, B-I-R-K, and McLaren, it should come up. Try not to buy it from Amazon. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. 8 books is really good.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Yeah, thank you. Hopefully that's helps you there, Deborah. So the next question is from Hazel Kimber. And Hazel says, I'm making myself a winter coat and I have 3 questions and I'm going to do, we've got the image here of what she's doing. She's going to do view D, which is the one that I've highlighted there. The coat fabric is wool and I've folded it up for several years. There aren't many creases, but what is the best way to remove them? Also, I want to line the coat. Will I just use the coat pieces as they are, or do I need to make any adjustments? and there's only a top fastening, which we can see at the top there by the collar. If I wanted to add buttons, could I do this on the facing somehow? And that's from Hazel.
Well, Hazel, you are going to look an absolute Bobby Dazzler, aren't you? Now, I imagine that the animal print fabric there is for the contrasting collar, not the whole coat, but you are absolutely on trend with that, and your lining looks amazing as well. So we really need to see this coat when it's finished. So your fabric, the creases, what you need to do is you need to put your fabric on the ironing board in a single layer. I would tend to have it wrong side uppermost. With woolen fabrics, it tends to be that the outside is, am I going to get this right? Is it the inside or the outside that is the right side? I can't remember. Check it out. Okay. Anyway, wrong side up. And what I want you to do is I want you to put a damp pressing cloth onto the fabric, and I want you to have steam in your iron, and I want you just to hover the iron over the fabric. Just do it very carefully. That will, all being well, get rid of your creasing. What I would then do with it is I would either, if you've got a nice straight banister that you can put it over, if it's a wooden banister, put a towel or something on it first, and just if you drape it over a banister, just the weight of the fabric will help to just pull those creases out. And failing that, put it on a bed. Don't fold it up. Let it really air dry for 2 or 3 days. If you do have to actually put the iron onto the fabric, do it with caution. I can't tell whether you've got any pile or anything in that, but you don't want to be kind of shrinking it in that sense. That method of just hovering is a kind of, it will just maybe shrink it a little bit. It's something that's quite useful to do if you're making a woolen skirt or something like that. So that's how I would get the creases out of it. Now then, you want to line the coat. So what I'm going to suggest with the lining is what you basically, yes, you are going to use the same pattern pieces. I would give yourself a little bit extra length, and when you come to do the sleeve, when you actually, and look at some of the things you've got in your wardrobe, bought jackets and things, there is a little pleat in the bottom of the sleeve lining, which is a wearing pleat. It's to stop it pulling up and being too tight and not hanging properly. So add a little bit of extra length there and put a wearing pleat in the sleeve. I wouldn't attach the lining to the bottom of the coat. I would leave it loose, but I would do those little thread chains at the side seams to hold the lining to the garment, the outer fabric at the side seam. I again would have a fairly substantial hem on the lining because it'll give it a bit of weight and it'll hang better with that in it. Now the other thing you need to do is address where the facing goes. So basically you don't want the lining to go to the front edge, do you? It only needs to go up to the facing, but you need to make sure that you add seam allowances for that. And this is going to sound wrong, but you are adding 2 seam allowances to the actual lining piece. So if you take your front pattern and you take your facing pattern and you were to draw a line down where the facing sits on top of the front of the garment, when you're not going to cut on that line, you're going to move the facing piece out of the way, and when you cut that lining piece, you are adding 2 seam allowances. You are going to add 1.25 inches. Trust me, it will come out right. And regarding the buttons and adding buttons to it, yes, of course you can do that. Absolutely do that. Now, what I'm going to suggest you do, and it really makes a big difference. I should have got a coat out of the cupboard that I've done. If only Peter was here. I want you in the lining fabric to put a tie, a fabric tie in the side seam at the waist in the left hand side, and I want you to insert that at the place, at the corresponding waist place where the lining joins the facing, so that you've got a lovely bow there that you can tie to hold that asymmetrical front in place. So when you add your other buttonholes, it's going to hang properly, it's going to feel secure, it's going to look fantastic. So make sure you do that. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is from Judith Locker. Hi Judith. And Judith says, hi Philippa, David and the gang. I've been revisiting the knitted fabric class, and in it you mentioned the possibility of using chain stitch to create seams on stretched fabric. I have a machine that will do chain stitch, but I've never used that facility because I'm not sure what the benefits are. Is this something that you use, and why would you choose it above stretch stitch or an overlocker? I always learn so much from you. I've only recently started sewing with jersey fabric, but I do plan to make some very easy wear dresses. With kindest regards, and that's Judith Locker.
So thank you for your question, Judith. We are delighted to hear that you are going to make some dresses from knitted fabric. Now, I think maybe I haven't explained myself properly in the class, but I would like you to have another look at it. What I think is I'm chatting about a 5-thread overlock stitch. And so a 3-thread overlock is, as you know, 2 loopers and 1 needle thread, and it cuts and neatens and joins 2 pieces of fabric together. A 4-thread overlocker has 2 loopers and 2 needle fabric, so there's an extra kind of straight stitch, as it were, securing the 2 pieces of fabric together. It's a little bit wider generally than a 3-thread overlock. It is stronger, okay? But a 5-thread has a chain stitch that uses 2 threads, and then it has a 3-thread overlock next to it. So basically it looks like 2 separate lots of stitching but within the same seam, and I think that's what I'm talking about. So what I was saying was that if you have a 5-thread overlock option, it is an option. So a 3-thread it's kind of okay for t-shirts and loose things, but it's not awfully strong. A 4-thread overlocker is really good for seams on dresses, tops and things like that. It's stronger than the 3-thread. And then the 5-thread is stronger again and more elastic. The chain stitch gives you elasticity. They all give you elasticity. It's silly to say that they don't. So I wouldn't, it's just options if you've got it on your overlocker or your serger. But as I say in the knitted fabrics class, you do not have to have an overlocker or serger to be able to sew knitted fabrics very successfully, and we do explore that in the class. So I hope that clarifies the point for you, Judith, and I wish you success in your dressmaking. David's looking for the next question.
I'm just making sure I'm not skipping questions. I always get Philippa will always let me know if I skip a question, so I'm trying to make sure I know. Okay, the next question is from Leslie Vowles. And Leslie says, I'm going to make the skirt Simplicity S9472, and we have it here. The skirt has pockets both sides and a side invisible zip. I would like to move the side zip to the centre back, but there's no seam at the back. I'm going to be making the skirt out of a dark coloured woolen flannel fabric with a tiny pattern, maybe a houndstooth. Can I put a seam in the yoke back and skirt back and add the zip in the back? And then there's a second question. I'd quite like to line the skirt. Could I use a thin cotton? I already have some I could use, or would you recommend something else? Do I add the lining at the waistband so that the pockets are between the lining and the main fabric? And that's from Leslie Vowles.
So Leslie, lots of things to think about with this skirt, aren't there? Now then, you can move the zipper to the centre back. So I imagine when you look at your pattern, you will have a back yoke piece and a back skirt that are suggested that you cut them on the fold. So instead of cutting them on the fold, you will need to cut them separately and add the seam allowance. Now normally the seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch, 1.5 centimetres, but where there is a zipper, I do like to have a little bit of a wider seam allowance, so you might add a little bit more. However, the thing that I want you to be aware of is that the actual skirt gathers onto the yoke, and you don't want to have any gathers where you are sewing the zip in place. So when you gather the skirt onto the yoke section, the bit near the centre back seam, you want to be leaving about an inch or more ungathered so that you can sew the zipper in successfully without having those gathered. And that is true of whether you're doing an invisible zipper or a regular conventional conventional lapped zipper. So that's the first thing to say on that. And I do wonder why you want to alter it, really. I mean, in an ideal world, I actually prefer a side zipper in a skirt. I think it's more comfortable if you're sat in a chair, if you're in the car driving, and you've got the zip can often kind of dig into the small of your back, whereas that doesn't happen with a side zipper. And I wonder if you feel that it's going to be a bit tricky putting the side zipper in with side pockets as well. If the pattern is well written and the instructions are good, it shouldn't be. If you have got our pocket clasp and our inseam pocket clasp, I go into this in great detail and we have huge success with it. So if you do have that clasp, it's well worth looking at. And then in terms of the lining, I personally wouldn't use a thin cotton. The cotton will stick to the woolen fabric and it'll stick to your legs as well. I would only use a thin cotton fabric in a cotton summer skirt that I wasn't going to wear any tights or anything else with pantyhose. Okay, so I would recommend a more conventional shiny lining, and yes, absolutely put it in at the waistband so that the pocket goes between the lining and the skirt. That's perfectly acceptable and it'll be very comfortable. So good luck with all of that, and let us know what you do.
Thank you. So the next question is from Maureen, and Maureen says, I have a question which is not garment specific, but about which I'd appreciate some guidance. I wonder if Philippa could discuss pattern alterations and garment making, blouses, t-shirts and dresses, for example, for ladies who have had breast surgery, be it partial or total removal, to provide pleasing and wearable results. So Philippa, what advice can we give on that for Maureen?
I think there are a lot of aspects to this question, Maureen, and I think it is a very individual response. So, you know, it may be people that have had a mastectomy and had only one breast removed. They may have had a double mastectomy and had both breasts removed. So it is very much how you as an individual feel about your new appearance, which I can imagine must take an awful lot getting used to. And I think, you know, the size of your bust originally is going to affect the choices that you made as well. I mean, if you had a large cup size and you'd only had one breast removed, then there's quite a difference to make up there. You know, are you going to have reconstructive surgery? Are you not going to do that? Is there sensitivity in the area? Do you not like how some fabrics feel, or even how some garments feel against your skin, which is going to be very sore initially and may be sensitive for a long time. So I think there are lots and lots and lots of things to consider as an individual in terms of what your surgery has been and your response to that and how you kind of feel emotionally about it all. But just generally, there are things that you can do to kind of take focus away or add the impression of there being a fullness to your chest where perhaps there isn't the same, you know, body muscle and etc. as there had been previously. So anything with a little yoke on it and gathers from a high yoke is going to give the impression of more fullness there. Likewise, breast pockets, so any little pockets on the breast will add fullness visually as well as in terms of fabric. So think about those types of things if you are wanting to kind of give the impression of a fuller chest than perhaps you might have. But also I think there's very good to try to perhaps give the eye another focus. So maybe it is a lovely big collar, and I'm a huge fan of big collars, you know, collars in contrasting colours, lovely scarves or ties at the neck, really bright jewellery, big chunky beads, something like that. Maybe taking the focus to a sleeve. So, you know, currently it's very fashionable, lots of very full gathered into the sleeve head type of garments, pleating at the sleeve. That's all going to kind of take your eye up and away from the chest area. So my suggestion would be, and there must be forums out there for ladies who have had gone through this very traumatic experience, and to help with what they have found has worked well for them, whether it's, bras with prosthetics or whatever it is, and what they had found worked for them in terms of garments as well. I think that's really important. And I would also spend some time shopping and picking things off, not actually buying them, but trying on things that you wouldn't normally think that you would choose, and see if you think that they might work for you, something with more interest in the collar, in a yoke, etc. And look at jewellery and look at those other things. And what I would say to you, a thing that I've sort of tried to do all of my life, but I think that it's incredibly important for women, especially as they age, and especially for somebody who's gone through a really unpleasant experience like that, is to wear clothes that bring you joy and that will bring joy to everybody else. I cannot tell you how often I will be out or walking down the street or on the train or something like that, and I will be complimented, often, mostly by women, on what I am wearing, okay? And that bright colours do so much to lift your spirits, and your clothes become a joy. You look at what people are wearing, and everybody's wearing grey and black and navy and brown, and there's no colour out there, and you stand out by looking different, and you get so much positivity back from that. It is amazing. My dad is 91, and my dad wears tartan trousers and bright shirts, and he's always in a hat and things like that, and even he at 91 gets complimented on being how smart he is. So make your clothes a statement about who you are and your kind of ultimately, hopefully, joy of coming through this terrible thing, and that there's much to be enjoyed, and just what you put on your body is a big part of that. And see how people engage with you, and how nice it is when somebody tells you how lovely you look. So yeah, I hope that helps. It must be really hard, and I'm sad for you and all the ladies that have been through and will go through that, and who knows where we all end up. But yeah, just be kind to yourself and allow yourself to spend a bit of money on yourself. You deserve it.
Thank you, Maureen. Okay, the next question is from Anita Bargewell. And Anita, well, she says it's not a question, she does tag a question on the end. She just says, just thank you for getting me back into sewing. What I've learned is more than sewing. I'm now thinking things through a lot more, especially pattern matching. And we've got an image that she's put on here. And I love what she's done here. This picture is a linen shift dress. I'm making an overtop in fine cotton lawn. I struggled trying to get a good match, and then the penny dropped. I could turn this particular fabric over, and I ended up with a mirror image. Well done you, Anita. I'm going to do a mandarin collar in 2 parts as per one of the classes. And then Anita does have a question, and it's how do you keep a tidy sewing room? She says that she does a really good tidy up, and then before she knows it, it's back to square one. So what do we think, Philippa?
So Anita, how clever are you? And that is the greatest thing to come from all of this, that it's made you think about what you can do and the possibilities, and that you do not have to stick to what it says in the pattern. When I was a teenager, if there wasn't enough fabric for the garment that I wanted to make from the pattern, I would think that I couldn't make it. And now it's like, oh well, what can I do with that? Oh, I could use this, I could use that, I could do that, I could do the other, which is really great. And so some fabrics, as in this case, work equally as well from the wrong side, and the right side of the fabric really is the side that you like the most. I mean, I can't tell any difference from one side to the other. It's amazing. So it's absolutely fantastic. And you're going to get the same theme going through by putting a join in the centre back of your collar, so that you mirror image your collar. I can't remember which class that does that, but yeah, we did discuss that. So that is absolutely, it's what I hope for. It means, what I know is, come December, I can let you go. You've already flown with it. You've taken it all on board. You absolutely know where you're going to go with this, and the world is your oyster, and you'll just keep improving. So I think that is just absolutely brilliant. How do I keep a tidy storeroom? It is an absolute tip. It is full of furniture for the renovation downstairs. There is a huge rack of garments from these classes that I don't know what to do with. There are endless boxes in the studio and in the loft. There is a box so big for each of the classes that we did, and that's 40 plus classes. And I was thinking about it only the other day, thinking, can I actually get rid of all that stuff now, because I would really like to clear this space. I think it is really difficult. I have huge hopes that once our renovation downstairs is done, I'll get my life back and I will empty that studio and have it looking as it did before we started with all of these online classes. Does it matter if it's tidy? Yes, I do think you work better in a tidy space, but as long as you're producing work and you can find the stuff that you need to find and you're enjoying yourself, I'm not sure that it's too critical. But yeah, come the spring, I will be having a big major tidy, and I'm going to be sending a lot of stuff to auction. Not sewing stuff, but other stuff.
Okay, so we've announced the final question, and then we're going to announce the winners of the draw. So the final question is from Jan Pritchard. I think she answered this on the fly. She says, sorry, I haven't got a photograph because I'm away from home at the moment, but she's making a straight mid-length skirt with back overlapping slit vents, which reveals a bit of leg, but not all of it. And she says she's struggling with attaching a lining. She's managed to get herself into a complete tangle with it. There isn't anything in the pattern instructions to help. I do hope you can help because I'm losing the will. And that's from Jan Pritchard. And I can hear Philippa busy cutting out, getting ready to show you exactly how to do this.
So I have an idea for you, Jan. So this is the back skirt, centre back seam. There is going to be a vent. This could be open, so it's just a straight slit, or it could be pressed to one side. Side seam probably would have a dart in it. This is what I suggest you do with your lining. I suggest that so here's the centre back, come a little bit in from the centre back and cut straight up parallel to the centre back. Curve it like that above where the actual pleat is. You're going to overlock and turn back and finish off that edge, and then once that lining is in place, it will not interfere with your slit at all, and you'll be able to move freely and it'll be nice and neat. So that's what I would do with that. Now then, we did just have a little comment from Helen McDonald in Australia, who was watching the Antiques Roadshow from Beverley Minster, Beverley being the town which we are sitting in now. What a magnificent building. I think Peter went along to that and took some stuff, but it was of no value whatsoever. It was a good few years ago. If only he was here to be able to ask. Anyway, Beverley Minster, it is a medieval cathedral, and Beverley is a little hidden gem, but you're all very welcome to come. And the reason that Beverley has a minster, a cathedral, is that a minster just means that there isn't a bishop associated with the cathedral. That's why it's a minster and not a cathedral. We don't have a bishop of Beverley. Hull has a new bishop, and they are now Beverley, the Hull Minster, aren't they? Yeah, they have a bishop though, and that's completely contradicting what I said. Anyway, we have a Saint John of Beverley from about 700 or something, and he cured somebody of something, and I don't know what it is. Do you know, David?
Yeah, but it's a long story.
Okay, briefly.
No, he was just renowned for his miracles.
Okay, so anyway, so that's why Beverley has this big cathedral, and it's called Beverley because there are quite a number of waterways. There used to be shipbuilding and all sorts of things, and Beverley by some is believed to have come from Beaverley, which is where the beavers lived. So that's why it's called Beverley. So I'm glad you can picture where we are, Helen. We don't know where you are in Australia, but we're glad that you thought so highly of Beverley Minster. So before I just quickly, the next 2 months, so we will have sessions as normal for both our quilt makers and our garment makers the third week in November, so about 4 weeks or so from now, but we will let you know. The final session, as I mentioned on Tuesday, is going to be a combined session. It will probably be a little bit longer. yes, we will be answering questions, but we also just want to have a little kind of celebration and review of your work and our work over the last 7 years, or 6+ years. So we will let you know about that, but it will be a combined session. So next month is your last kind of real chance to get your questions in, but don't forget, you are not losing access to your classes or to contact, okay? So Kelly will be working for us until the end, you've got until the end of 2028. It's a very long time to access your classes. So don't think that this is goodbye. You can see us anytime you want in your sewing studio, on your phone, wherever you happen to be. So there's lots and lots of time to enjoy and learn from the classes that you have in your library. And you are going to have that extra little bound buttonhole thing for free coming your way before too long. So yeah, start thinking about those questions for next month, and we will do our best to answer as many as we can. So our winners for our Easter gifts are Lisa Barker and Rachel Gilbert. And thank you, David. I can read those easily. It's quite a change, that, let me tell you. Okay, so David will be in touch with those 2 lucky ladies so that we can get their gifts sent to them. So Peter will be back, all being well, next time. And anytime I need a garment and pulling out of a wardrobe to show you a particular thing, he will be able to rush off and do that for me. David, of course, will be here. So from David,
bye-bye,
and from me, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all your great questions. Hope we really helped you. We look forward to